Hi everyone, my name is Laura, and today I'd like to present a study in which we changed the incentive structure of social media platforms to halt the spread of misinformation online. So in recent years, the spread of misinformation online has skyrocketed, increasing polarization, racism, and resistance to climate action and vaccines. And so it's no surprise that many are trying to develop interventions to combat the spread of misinformation. In this study, we argue that the spread of misinformation on social media platforms is facilitated by the existing incentive structure of those platforms, where social rewards in the form of likes, shown here as carrots, and punishments in the form of dislikes, shown here as sticks, are dissociated from the veracity of the information shared. So while users can discern true from false content relatively well, as shown by work from Pennycook and Rand, they've little to no incentive to do so, especially because misinformation often generates more engagement than reliable posts. And as a result, people will often share misinformation even when they do not trust it. We now propose that the key to reducing misinformation online is not to tell users what's true and what's false, but rather to incentivize them to share true information. As such, we need an incentive structure where carrots and sticks are directly associated with the veracity of the information shared. This type of structure would then capitalize on the natural human tendency to choose actions that lead to the greatest reward and avoid those that lead to punishment. And here, any rewards that are directly associated with veracity should work. We test such a structure by slightly altering the engagement options offered to users. Specifically, we added an option to react to posts using a trust and a distrust button. We selected these buttons because trust by definition is related to veracity. It's a firm belief in the reliability and truth of something. And therefore, people would likely use these buttons to discern true from false information more so than the commonly existing engagement options, such as like and dislike buttons. As a result, participants who find themselves in this new environment where others use trust and distrust buttons to discern true from false information will then also want to share more true relative to false posts in order to gain more trust rewards and fewer distrust punishments compared to traditional environments. To test this idea, we collected data over 6 experiments from 951 participants who engaged in simulated social media platforms where they encountered both true and false information. In experiment 1, we examined whether participants would use the trust and distrust buttons to discern true from false information more so than the existing like and dislike buttons. In experiment 2 and 3, we then tested whether participants would also share more true than false information in social media platforms that introduced real trust and distrust feedback from other participants. In experiment 1, participants saw 100 news posts. Half the posts were true and half the posts were false. Participants were then given the opportunity to react to each post using a like, dislike, trust, and distrust reaction button. They could press as many of these buttons as they wished or none at all and simply skip the post. They were told that their reactions would then be observed by the other participants. What we found was that participants used the trust and distrust buttons in orange to discern true from false information more so than existing like and dislike buttons shown in blue. This means that giving users the option to use trust and distrust reactions creates an environment where rewards in the form of trust and punishments in the form of distrust are in fact contingent on accuracy. It then follows that exposing participants to this type of environment will in turn also increase the sharing of accurate information in order to receive trust and reduce sharing of misinformation in order to avoid distrust. To that end, we ran 2 more experiments. In experiment 2, participants saw the same 100 posts shown to participants in experiment 1. But this time, instead of reacting to the post, they could choose to either share the post or skip it. They were told that if they chose to share a post, it would be shared to their feed so that the other participants would be able to see the post and react to it in real time. Depending on the condition participants were in, they could either receive dislikes, likes, distrust, or trust. We also included a baseline condition in which participants received no feedback if they decided to repost. If participants instead chose to skip a post, they saw a white screen asking them to click continue. Experiment 3 followed the same structure as experiment 2, but this time we combined positive and negative feedback so that participants were assigned to one of the 3 conditions: a baseline condition, a like and dislike condition, and a trust and distrust condition. And as expected, in both experiment 2 on the left and experiment 3 on the right, participants who received trust and distrust feedback, shown here in orange, shared more true relative to false posts than those who received like or dislike feedback, or those who received no feedback. By contrast, there was no difference in discernment and sharing behavior between participants who received like and dislike feedback and those in the baseline condition who didn't receive any feedback. We next set out to characterize the mechanism by which trust-distrust feedback improved discernment. Imagine you see a post on a social media platform and you need to decide whether or not to repost it. How do you make this decision? First, you likely examine the post. What does it say? What's the topic? Second, you'll probably try to retrieve your existing knowledge. For example, you might think about what you already know about the topic, what you've heard others say, and you may even try to estimate how others will react to the post if you decide to repost it, and so on. We think of both of these things as evidence that is either external or internal, and the process by which you decide is called evidence accumulation. Some of the evidence you retrieve will push you towards a good response, that is posting a true post and skipping a false post, and some will push you towards a bad response, that is posting a false post and skipping a true post. We can think of the evidence that pushes you towards a good response as signal. And using computational modeling, it's then possible to estimate how much a participant is influenced or pushed by signal relative to noise by calculating a parameter known as a drift rate in a class of models known as drift diffusion models. One possibility then is that in the trust-distrust environment, evidence towards good responses is given more weight than evidence towards bad responses, and therefore people make more discerning decisions. And in the DDM, this is captured by a larger drift rate. The other possibility is that in the trust-distrust environment, participants are more careful about their decisions. That is to say, they require more evidence before reaching the response threshold. So to test which or if any of these possibilities applied, we fit drift diffusion models to our data for each group separately. And we found that in both experiment 2 on the left and experiment 3 on the right, participants in the trust-distrust environments shown in orange had a larger drift rate than participants in the other two environments. This suggests that trust and distrust feedback improves discernment by increasing the importance of evidence consistent with discerning behavior. And as you can see, there was no meaningful difference between the baseline and the like and dislike environment. And we also didn't observe a consistent meaningful difference in the decision threshold or any other parameters. So in this study, we created a novel incentive structure that significantly reduced the spread of misinformation and provide insights into the cognitive mechanisms that make it work. What we found was that participants used the trust and distrust reaction buttons in a more discerning manner than dislike and like reaction buttons. And this created an environment in which social rewards and punishments were strongly associated with the veracity of the information shared. As a result, participants who were submitted to this new environment were more discerning in their sharing behavior compared to those in traditional environments who saw either no feedback or dislike and or like feedback. And crucially, we observed this reduction in sharing of misinformation without a reduction in overall engagement. Finally, I'd like to thank my fellow co-authors, Nora Holtz and Tally Sherratt, as well as all the other members of the Effective Brain Lab, and of course you for your attention. I look forward to hearing from you, and I'm happy to answer any questions. If you'd like to read the full paper that's now out in eLive, please scan the QR code. Thank you.